James Kaufman, World News Report today. Ladies and gentlemen, we're having a swarm of earthquake activity in Venezuela. At least I think it's earthquakes and not bombings. It is on a plate tectonic boundary that runs right into Mount Pelee in Martinique, Mount Pelee being the same Mount Pelee that Edgar Cayce mentions in his End of Times 2-week warning. And this is again on a volcanic range, as I will show y'all. We've had a 6.3 magnitude earthquake and a 6.2 magnitude earthquake and several other aftershocks. I'm going to show both those to you. First, the 6.3 came in as a 9 on the DYFI, an 8 on the shake map. It was much stronger, I feel sure. And even though it was, well, miles inland, it had a tsunami warning associated with it, which is very odd. They say it was at 14 kilometers of depth, which would be too deep for a bombing. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so y'all can see the volcanic ranges here. There's actually a plate tectonic boundary that goes right out into Martinique and Mount Pelee. Again, one of the two volcanoes that has to go off simultaneously, Etna and that one. And Etna is already going off, which would give us a 2-week warning before the end of times. So what do we have here? Well, let's see. There's a 6.2 there as well. And I will zoom you in so you can see the swarm. A 6.2 came in as a 9 as well. These are not the same quake. Came in as an 8 on the shake map with an associated tsunami warning at 7.8 kilometers. Let's zoom in and take a look at what's going on there in Venezuela, out of all places. All right, we do have these two volcanic ranges here, and this one actually goes right into Pelee. We see 5 earthquakes in the last 24 hours here. That 6.3, the 6.2, a 5.8, a 4.9, and a 4.5. And remember, there's probably been a lot more than that. The USGS only keeps up with 4.0s and stronger in other parts of the country besides the US. We'll double check that. But you can see that 6.3 there and that 6.2 right there. Separate depths. This one was at 7.8 kilometers, if I didn't mention that. Over to volcanoesandearthquakes.com. This is the 6.3, 14 kilometers. Europeans came in at 6.3 as well with a default depth. We're going to zoom in and take a look. And you can see the two big 6.0s. We are going to get some detailed information on the 6.3. But before we do that, let's see what the swarm really looks like, shall we? Wow, is all I can say. That's what the swarm really looks like. You'll only find that out here, I feel sure. That's the 5.8 there. So going back to the two larger quakes, wow. And going back to the 6.3, wow. Let's get some detailed information. All right, here we have a very strong 6.3 magnitude earthquake. Earthquake details 6.3. And let's see, the main reporting agency, USGS. Got a depth 14 kilometers and it released 2.7 atomic bombs worth of energy. Wow. All right, this is basically our DYFI, and a lot of people reported this quake. There's a lot of small towns, if you'll notice, in this area here. And we had over 779 reports here, probably ongoing. Unbelievable. All right, comparing quake data from different reporting agencies. Start out with the USGS 6.3, 14 kilometers. Next, we see Colombia coming in with a 6.3 at 14 kilometers. Europeans at 6.3 with a default depth. We have the Incorporated Research Institute for Seismology coming in at 6.3 at 14 kilometers. The Germans come in at 6.3 default depth. The French come in at 5.95 the default depth. The Italians come in at 6.3 at 9.8 kilometers. And let's see, the Australians come in at 6.4 with a default depth of 10 kilometers. And the OBSIS, the Brazilian University, comes in at 6.3 with a default depth of 10 kilometers. A lot going on here. That was Volcano Discovery. Back to volcanosandearthquakes.com. So if we can grab our 6.2, and there she blows right there. Please notice that that is Pelee, one of the two volcanoes. It has to be erupting at the same time to indicate that we had just a few weeks before the pole flip, i.e. the end of our current time. And there's Etna, the second one, and it is in full eruption currently. Notice that this plate here is not fully developed, and we're seeing a swarm there at the end of where the plate is developed in red versus where it's not developed in black. That energy will be flowing through these plates right into these volcanoes. Pelee, again, being the second indicator of the two. I will show you that reading from Edgar Cayce as well. A 6.2. And we have the USGS main source 6.2, 7.8. German 6.2, 10 kilometers default depth. The European 6.2, 10 kilometers default depth. This is not the 6.3, it's the 6.2. Right, very strong, magnitude 6.2, right on top of the 6.3. Yes, there are two volcanic ranges and a plate tectonic boundary that really has ended and is developing right in this area. You can see the swarm. All right, earthquake details. Magnitude 6.2 earthquake, USGS, and a depth of 7.8 kilometers, 1.9 atomic bombs worth of energy released. You can see the difference between a 6.2 and 6.3. It's quite a difference. Looking at the shake map, they even have more reports. 844 with this 6.2. It was much shallower and probably felt, well, a lot further out, as you can see some of the reports coming from way down here. And way over in Caracas, as a matter of fact. One of Edgar Cayce's most famous predictions, it hasn't come true yet. Both Mount Etna volcano in Italy and Mount Pelee in Martinique erupt together. Then there will be only 90 days to evacuate the west coast before the massive flood claims the coastline, the west coast of the U.S. And that is about to happen based on all the energy from that swarm moving up that plate boundary. Unbelievable. Now, I checked the area for any buoys in event mode because we did have two tsunami warnings. Nothing going on here. You have some storms that might be inbound. We'll talk about this tropical storm here, later this afternoon. All right, big swarm over here as well. This is biblical, i.e. the perhaps largest earthquake known to man might occur in this area here. There's Mount Etna, Mount Pelee here, and here's our swarm. Let's zoom in and take a look at our swarm. It is unbelievable. Look at this mess here. And if you will, notice this is the volcanic ridge, and so is this, that everything ends up, well, moving on. And this works its way right into, of course, Mount Pelee. Right, what Edgar Cayce said would happen. And I didn't notice, but we've had some activity and magma movement under Pelee itself, which should scare everyone to death here. First time I've ever seen that. So we're having a swarm in Venezuela, some end of times type stuff here. This is all hooked up to Mount Pelee. We see magma moving under Mount Pelee. Etna is already going off per Edgar Cayce's prediction here. And, well, we have hundreds of earthquakes here. 5 large quakes recorded by the USGS. A 6.3 at 14 kilometers. A 6.2 at 7.8 kilometers. And then the 5.8, the 4.9, and the 4.5. And we all just saw the swarm and how intense it really was. With that said, folks, many of Edgar Cayce's predictions have come true. I expect this one to also come true, and it looks like we're starting to see movement right where we need to. And is in full eruption. If Pelee were to erupt, we would have 90 days to clear the west coast of the United States before the big event. God bless. Please share, please subscribe, and always remember, anything's possible. Bizarro world.